This video is for people who weren't here on 320. Here we are up to the ninth Tashma, and here we go. So, a river that sweeps away his walls and his wood and his stones and places it within the field of his friends. This stuff belongs to the finder because the owner of these items has despaired and called that stuff hefker. So this Tashma, even though every Tashma we've had so far has been Rava trying to show us that he's correct and Abaye coming in and saying, hey, that's not correct. Here we have a case for the first time ever of Abaye trying to show that Abaye is correct, and Rava is going to have to show that Abaye is not correct. So the question number one is look at this Baraita right here and see if you can figure out how it is that this supports Abaye. Okay, this is a hard one, so let's see how we did it, how Abaye does it. Abaye asked the following question. Here's Abaye's reasoning. He looks at this and he says, here, what is the reason why, in this case, a person can keep the item? Okay, that's question number two. Okay, and the answer is because it's hefker, because it says specifically here, because the owner of those items has despaired and called it hefker. So this teaches us that in this case, the reason it belongs to the owner, to the finder, is because the owner has declared it hefker. So we can learn from this in a normal case when the owner does not despair of an item, that what? That in a normal, when an owner does not despair, a finder can't keep that item because he hasn't had a hefker and can only keep it if he declares it hefker. So that seems to support Baye. And so here we are. And why, again, so explain why it supports Abaye. Right? Because Abaye is basically of the opinion over and over again that you can only take an item when someone has declared it hefker, not before, not before, not an right, only immediately at the same time, or much, or you can take it much later, but only because beforehand someone has declared it hefker. And Yoni claimed this in class, and he said, this is really bad logic on Abaye's part, right? Because Yoni said this is a logic that says if A is because of B, then not B, then not B, then if not B, then not A, right? So that would be kind of like this: if dog is because of waggy tail, then no waggy tail equals no dog. But we actually know that's not true because there are plenty of dogs that actually don't have a waggy tail, right? Or there are plenty of dogs that don't even have a tail or something like that. Or we know that a dog has many more characteristics than just a waggy tail. And so I guess Rava could come back and say, Abai, I do not like your logic at all. But here is actually what Rava actually says here. Rava says the following. Here's how he attacks. First of all, he attacks with the words, Hacha b'mayaskinan. In this case, we're dealing with something completely different than what you're talking about, Rava. Meaning, this is a very specific case of someone watching things leave and be flown away in on a river. And he's actually saying this is not even a case of Yeush Shalom Midat, because these are items like pieces of my house that are floating away. And you say, oh, I see that piece of my kitchen. I see that color of my wall. Oh my goodness. This is not even a case of, this is a person saying, and it says very clearly that these get put in the field of his friend, meaning his friend knows this stuff. So the owner who watches it go away knows it's his. The owner is a friend. The person who finds it is a friend, and they know who's it belong to. This is not even a case of Yeush Shalom Midat. He's not going to declare Yeush because, according to the loser of this item, it still has a siman on it. So he's not actually going to give it up. So Rob is going to say, so why in this case do we even talk about the idea of Yeush? Because this is a case of the effort to get it back is actually going to take a lot of work. And even though it has a siman, even though he knows he can get it back and his friend knows he can get it back, it's going to take a lot of effort. So even in this case, even though it does have a siman, normally we would say that is a case of no yeush. This could be a case of yeush, and it is. That's why we specifically say that's when it belongs to to the finder. It belongs to the finder when someone has declared yeush in this one situation. But when he doesn't declare yeush, it means he wants to go back in this situation and get it because he knows it's his. He knows it has a siman on it. His friend knows whose it belongs to. His friend knows it's siman in it. Right. By the way, I didn't do that so well in class, but actually, I think I'm doing it right now here. Okay. Okay. And we actually don't need to really do this part. Now we're moving to Tashma number 10. Okay. Because that at least showed Abaye was trying to attack, and basically Rava comes back and says that logic just does not work, and this is talking about something different. Okay, so now we're on to Tashma 2. And here's what I brought up in class. So here we have a picture of Omer walking with his mom down the street, and they see a homeless person. Omer takes $10 out of his wallet and gives it to the homeless person. Omer's mom says, "How come you didn't give $50?" So the normal understanding, question number 4, the normal understanding of Omer's mom is what? It's like, Omer, you should have given more money. Why only $10? But there's another way we can understand Omer's mom that's kind of sarcastic, right? That's basically Omer's mom saying, "What? You're going to give away all of our money?" Or, yeah, or give away 10, 50, 100, 2,000. Why didn't you give away the entire house to them, right? Like, how, like, if you give away, like, don't be foolish in a way. So, in one way, Omer's mom could be expressing displeasure in Omer, saying, like, you're being a little stingy. But in another sense, Omer's mom could be saying, being sarcastic, like, why are you giving money to that person, right? Okay, so and let's look at this case as well. We've got Melissa and Lior eating, and there's their open fridge, and in comes Mama Marzouk. And because Melissa has made a beautiful meal for Lior. So Mama Marzouk and Lior's and Melissa's thinking, is my mom going to be okay with this? So Mama Marzouk says, "What? You didn't take the more expensive ingredients?" And so the question is Melissa good or grounded? Meaning, what possibly could Melissa's mom be thinking when she says, "What? You didn't take the more expensive ingredients?" What could she be thinking? So, my question number 6 is, give us 6A and 6B. What could Mama Marzouk be thinking? What are the two possibilities? And here are the two possibilities. One could be is, I'm so glad she made a meal for her friend, and she could have even used better ingredients. I would have really liked that, or like to really treat Lior. Or she could also actually be saying, "This girl is always taking exactly what I was going to use for our family dinner. This girl is driving me bonkers." So it could have been a very sarcastic, what, you're kind of taking all of my best stuff. So the real question is Melissa good or grounded, and how can we figure which interpretation is okay? So how are you going to figure out if what is the way that we can figure out if the interpretation is okay? And Kelvin actually came up with the answer here, but I'll tell you the answer is actually on the page. And so figure it out for question 7. And here's the answer. The answer is to prove what would prove Mama Marzouk was pleased with her daughter's actions. It would prove it if actually when she says, "How come you didn't take any more expensive ingredients?" do actually look in the fridge and see, are there more expensive ingredients? That would mean that she actually did want them to take more expensive ingredients. But if there weren't more expensive ingredients, now we realize that this is actually is a sarcastic message. Totally. Okay. And that's really where we are in that's kind of the setting for what comes next, because in our case we have a owner of a field who's saying, "Yum, I can't wait to harvest the field and to get to eat this stuff." And so we have this owner. Now we know, of course, that before the owner can harvest the field, that owner needs to do a few things. One is he needs to designate his corners for payah, saying that's going to the poor people, and he also needs to do a little bit of separation. He needs to separate truma. So what is truma? Let's look right here. Actually, question number 8. Just read what truma is and give me an idea of what truma is. So it's important to know that truma is that until a farmer takes truma, this field stuff, all the grain is called tevel, and you can't eat from it. Truma is basically some stuff that that the high priest gets for working in the temple for the Jewish people, for working in the high priest for at Jewish people. So they get some kind of reward for doing that, and they do that, and then once you've separated truma, then the farmer gets to eat the food. So, so here comes the scenario. Here comes the scenario. Suppose that Farmer Frank has someone who's working for him, and Farmer Frank said, "Hey, guess what I did a few hours earlier? I separated your truma for you, even though you didn't know." So, and Farmer Frank says, "And you didn't take truma from my better grain." So the question is, what does Farmer Frank mean by this statement? Right. So just like our Miss Marzouk, what did she mean by this statement? She might mean that she's really, what might she mean? So that's questions 9 and 10. What might she mean? Right. What might Farmer Frank mean? Farmer Frank might mean that, right, that he really is really happy with this or isn't happy with this. See, because one of the things about truma is it can be any amount and can be from any kind of part of your field. It can be from the good stuff, the medium stuff, and the bad stuff. So Farmer Frank is looking at what this guy has and said, "Hey, I did a great job for you. I separated truma for you. You can go and munch away." So Farmer Frank says this statement, and so how do we check what if he's actually happy about this? And so of course in the same way he checks if it's he's happy about this by question number 11, by checking to see, is there actually better grain, and if there is, then this truma is truma. But now all of a sudden we realize that actually, so he's going to check if there's better grain available. So let's suppose there is better grain available, and then all of a sudden we realize that, hey, this truma that this worker separated is actual truma. But the problem is who is this supporting, Rava or Abaye? That's question number 12, and why is question number 13. So this is kind of a case. It's not a lost and found case, but it's a very similar case to Yeush Shalom Midat. We've got our farmer's worker who Frank doesn't know about, is going into the field and saying, "I'm going to go make my owner, my boss, really happy. I'm going to separate truma for him." Then he comes an hour later and says, "Hey, um, by the way, I did separate truma for you." And we wonder, is he happy about this? Is he not happy about it? And let's suppose he's happy about that. Now all of a sudden, that truma becomes truma. But actually, it became truma the moment that this guy separated it. So let's suppose that the worker separates the truma at 8 o'clock, and Farmer Frank only says, "Hey, this statement at 10 o'clock." But suppose at 9 o'clock, one of Farmer Frank's kids came and actually ate some of that grain. Yum, 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 yum. And so the question is, has he stolen or has he not? Farmer Frank hasn't declared whether this is truma or not, but the worker has. And so this seems to be a case of that the Farmer Frank's kids are okay if the principle of Yeush Shalom Midat works. So this seems to support Rava. Interestingly enough, Rava says, "Hey, there's a way actually that I can show you that actually Abaye is even correct here." And what is that? So Abaye basically, Rava says, here's what Abaye can say. Abaye can say, when I hire someone to work for me, I don't just hire them to work for me. I hire them to think for me. I hire them to do for me. I hire them basically to be me. So Abaye can say, the moment that I hire someone, I'm appointing that person to be me. And if that person is taking truma, it is as if what? That's question number 15. And that's where we end for the day.